Both of my grandmothers passed away before I graduated from high school, before my 18th birthday. I really didn't spend that much time with them because they lived far away from where I lived. My grandfathers both were people I never got to know. My mother's father passed away way before I was born from a heart attack, and my father's father passed away, but I never really got to know him. Never got to meet him. He was alive when I was born, but I never got the chance to exchange any sort of contact with him. But my father's mother, my grandmother Burns, was someone who always had made a great impact in my life. We called her Grandmother Burns. And Grandmother Burns, I can still see her right now. She was this really tall, solid, strong woman. And everyone says I look just like her when they see her in my face. And every summer, my father and I would travel down to North Carolina from New York City to go visit her. And she was this very no-nonsense woman. She lived on a farm, huge farm that had tobacco plants and almond trees and all sorts of things. And she lived there after my uncle passed away all by herself. And so she had to be tough. She had to be this very no-nonsense woman. And one thing I remember about my grandmother was she didn't really talk that much, but when she did talk, you listened because she had something really important to say. When she did talk, it was important, and you listened. You stopped what you were doing so you could hear her words, the power of her words. And I remember every summer when we would go visit her in North Carolina, she would make this amazing pineapple upside down cake. And if you've ever had pineapple upside down cake before, it is so good. I don't know how you make it, but it's so delicious. And she was an amazing cook. I used to look forward to her dumplings, her chicken and dumplings, and her fish fries, and all of her food. And she had these chickens in a chicken coop, and she would say things to me like, "Go, girl, go fetch me some eggs so I can make breakfast." Just like that, very no nonsense. And I would think to myself, why is my grandmother so serious all the time? You know, and I was like 9 or 10 years old. Why is she so serious all the time? But I didn't understand at that point what it was like to be a woman in the South, living all by yourself, a Black woman with all this property that you owned. How tough you had to be, how strong you had to be in order to keep that land, in order to keep your blessings, in order to keep your sanity. And I remember this one day, she looked at me and she says, "Girl, come here." And I got up from the couch and I went over to her, and she was looking at me with this very intense look. And she had this oil, this bottle of oil in her hand. And she unscrewed the top of the oil, she put the top down, and she poured a little bit of the oil onto her fingertips. And she looked at me again, and she said, "Come here." She motioned for me to move my head towards her, and she, with her fingertips, made the symbol of the cross on my forehead. And she looked at me and she said, "I am anointing you." And her eyes said, "This is protection." She said, "I am anointing you, child." This wards off evil. You are protected, my child. And I remember she held my hands and she just looked at me so intensely, and I felt her energy. I felt her wisdom. I felt her gift, her precious gift of wisdom. And it stayed with me. It stayed with me right here. And in that moment, in that intimate moment that I shared with my grandmother, who I never really even got to talk to that much because she didn't talk, she unlocked this precious gift of power for me, of the power of the universe. It was something, as a moody teenager who was unimpressed by, everything, who rejected everything, it was the one thing that I was able to really feel, to really connect to. I felt that my grandmother in that instant had unlocked the door to the spirit world. It was the first time where I felt a connection with an energy that was bigger than me, that was stronger than me, that was more powerful than me. And I felt that energy, and I held it right here in my heart. And she really gave me a gift of wisdom. And the truth is, there's so much joy in wisdom. And each of us, every one of us has wisdom right here within in our intuition. And that wisdom is always around us. And anytime you need it, it's there. But the truth is, you have to be able to quiet your mind enough, to quiet your spirit enough, to quiet all the busyness, all the chaos, all the noise, all the distractions, to be able to hear it. That's where the joy comes from. The question is, are you listening? You know, we carry a lot with us. We carry the stories of our ancestors with us. We carry the trauma of our ancestors with us. We carry a lot of the things that our ancestors wanted to accomplish with us on our shoulders. We carry that. But the most powerful thing that we carry from our ancestors is we carry their wisdom. We carry their wisdom right here. And when you're able to humble yourself enough to tap into that wisdom, you will begin to tap into this joy, this intuition, this trust of yourself, where you will feel enlightened and awakened and empowered. There's this term called old soul, which I really like. I always love that term. And an old soul refers to a person who is usually a younger person, someone who's youthful, but they have this gift of maturity. They have this gift of wisdom. And usually this old soul in our families or friends that we know, they represent or they remind us of someone from our past or a relative that has passed away. But they carry this maturity and this spirit and this humbleness of insight, even though they're really young. And when I was in college, one of my best friends, she had this nephew. And this nephew that I met, he was an old soul, and it always stuck with me. When I thought of old souls, I always remembered his face. So in our senior year of college, my best friend, her mother passed away. And I remember her mother. She was this beautiful soul, such a kind person, such a wonderful woman. And when she passed away, her sister, my best friend's sister, got pregnant at the time. And a few months, or like a year after my best friend's mom passed away, her sister gave birth to a son. And as soon as he was born, everyone who looked at him smiled because he looked exactly like her mom who had passed away. He was carrying her mother's spirit in him. He had this old soul energy, and he looked at the world with these eyes of wisdom, and you could feel in his spirit that he carried the spirit of his mom, of his grandmother. In his spirit, he carried the energy, the wisdom of my best friend's mom who had passed away. There's so much power in wisdom, but you have to be able to expand your mind enough to allow yourself to experience it, to witness it. And it all starts with right here, your intuition. A few years ago, I went to Brooklyn to go to this women's circle. And at the time, I was looking for guidance. I was feeling really lost, and I was feeling really out of place. And I didn't know where I was going, and I needed direction. And in this women's circle, it was like a women's circle of light. They talked about connecting to your intuition, connecting to your womb, connecting with yourself, realizing the power that you have within. They taught us chants and ways to connect with your deeper innermost self. And it was really empowering for me to feel the energy of that women's circle. But I left feeling like I had all of this energy that was deep down, that I had buried so deep, that I needed to release, but I had no idea how. And around the same time, I found myself wandering a lot, wandering around the city, because I felt like I was trying to find something. I was trying to find myself, the part of myself that I felt was lost. I was wandering around the city. I remember on my days off, I wouldn't stay home and relax. I would wander around the city, go to my favorite part of New York City, which is Union Square, and I would go to bookstores trying to find myself. Trying to find myself in books, trying to find myself in a cup of coffee, trying to find myself on the streets, trying to find myself in the faces of other people. I was just feeling lost, and I was looking for guidance. And I remember one day I was walking, wandering around on 12th Street in Union Square, one of my favorite streets. And I was walking down 12th Street, and there was this group of people, and they looked like they were waiting as another group of people got out of a cab. They were waiting to get into the cab. And so I was trying to do my New York City walking and bob and weave and navigate around this crowd of people. And as I'm navigating around this crowd of people, this woman approaches me, and she touches my arm, and she looks at me with this deep, intense look. And she says to me, "I feel your energy very strongly." And I'm just staring at her. She says, "I feel your energy very strongly. You are searching and searching, but you cannot find." And I stared at her, stunned, because in that instant, she read me. She understood me. I stood there stunned, and my eyes, I felt them welling up with tears, because I felt the power of her words, of her truth, like she knew my soul, like she knew my spirit. I felt it. And I looked at her, and she said, "Contact me." And we exchanged numbers, and I later on found out that she was a psychic, and while we didn't keep in touch, I will never forget what she told me. I will never forget the words that she told me. And in that instant, when she touched my arm, remember she was this small woman with a fur coat and red nail polish, hair pulled back. And when she touched my arm and looked intensely into my eyes, she saw me and she understood me in a way that no one had really understood me. And in that instant, it felt like my grandmother was there. And I had this feeling of being back in my grandmother's dining room. And she's just anointed me and told me, child, you are protected. And looking in that woman's eyes, I felt that same message, that same wisdom. I felt my grandmother's wisdom was with me. And she said, child, you are protected. I see you. And there was joy there. There was a release there. That release that I was looking for in that women's circle, I felt it. I felt it there. I felt it come from my throat. I felt it come from my eyes. I felt it. And all of us can experience this if we allow ourselves to, but sometimes we're so busy, we're so distracted that we don't. We don't have the time. We don't give ourselves the quiet time to really listen to our spirits, to really connect to those moments where we feel our wisdom is at its peak. Because each of us has wisdom right here within. It's about taking the time to listen. When my grandmother passed away, I was thinking back about memories of her, and the last memory that I had of her was a phone call. That was the last interaction that we had before she passed away. And she was on a respirator in the hospital because she had breast cancer. And, you know, for a while she had had several surgeries and she got one of her breasts removed. And we were happy because we thought that that would help and the cancer would be in remission. And she was okay for a little while, but then she got called back to the hospital. And my dad was in the car on the phone with her and he passed me the phone. And I didn't know what the situation was. I didn't know she was on a respirator, but I could hear it when I held the phone to my ear. I could hear it, and I could hear her deep breathing, her struggle. Her voice sounded different. She sounded tired, like she needed to rest. And I got scared. I didn't really know what to say to her. So I said, "I love you, Grandma." And I listened to her breathing and she said, "I love you too, baby." And that was the last interaction that we had. I passed the phone back to my dad. And then a few months after that, she passed away. And we went to North Carolina to her funeral. And when we got back home a few months later, my dad brought me some items that were wrapped in this cloth. And when I opened it, it was the rings that my grandmother used to wear. And he said, she wanted you to have this. She wanted you to have these rings. And I remember putting them on and immediately feeling this surge of energy surround me. And I knew in that instant that my grandmother was there. Her spirit, her energy, it was there. I felt it. I felt connected to it. I felt empowered by it. I felt really, really good. Wearing those rings, I felt like my grandmother was back there with me, right there with me. And we were in our dining room again, and she was anointing me and saying, my child, you are protected. You know, a lot of us, we look at self-help books and we look at gurus and we look at therapists and we look to them for guidance. And while all of those things, they really work, they really do, they take you to your first step in your personal transformation, your personal evolution. They guide you to better connect within, to better get to that deeper part of yourself. But there's another level of self-discovery that I want to encourage you to tap into today. And that's your own wisdom, your own intuition. And you can only get there by yourself. You can only get there through this solitary act of practicing, quieting your mind and opening your heart to listen to your inner guidance, your inner voice, your inner intuition. Because through that process, you can connect to your joy. Is this easy? No, it's not easy. It's not easy to quiet your mind and humble yourself and connect to your intuition and open your heart and listen to guidance. But if you're able to do that, if you're able to say to your ancestors, I need help, I need guidance, I don't know what to do, please give me guidance, I'm struggling, guide me in the right direction, and you listen for answers, it will come to you. It's not easy. It's something you have to practice. And it's something I practice every day. It's taken a long time for me to, get comfortable with it, to quiet my mind enough, to let my anxiety go enough that I can actually hear the answers. The answers are always coming to us. They're always around us, but it's about clearing the blockages so that we're able to truly feel it and hear it. When you're able to feel it and hear it, really hear those answers, you can better connect with your true authentic self, with your true wisdom. And that is where the joy is. Connect to your wisdom. There is joy there. The question is, are you listening? Today, I'm going to challenge myself to really think about how I am tapping in to my own intuition and my own wisdom. What am I doing to quiet my mind today, to humble myself today, to really ask for guidance, to really listen to that inner voice? How am I using then that inner voice to guide me on my path today, on where I'm going today? How am I allowing that inner voice to help me to make decisions today? So I encourage you to join me on this quest. Ask yourself, how can I better connect with my inner wisdom? What can I do to tap into that? Who do I channel in my life to feel a sense of wisdom, a sense of power, a sense of understanding? With me, I always feel my grandmother's spirit everywhere I go. Whose spirit do you feel everywhere you go? Who are your spirit guides in your life? Whose wisdom do you feel? Channel that, tap into that, because that's part of you. There is joy in wisdom, and you have the power to open your mind, open your heart, and open your ears to listen. That is where the joy is. Thank you so much for listening. This is day 12 of my 25 days of joy challenge, where every single day for the next 25 days of December until December 25th, I will be talking about a topic of joy. So if this video resonated with you, please leave me a comment. Please share it with your friends. Please give it a like, give it a love. If it resonated with you and you want to share it, it's awesome because it helps me to know that you're listening. So thank you so much for joining me this morning for the speech. I hope you have a beautiful, awesome, amazing, love-filled day. And remember, the wisdom is inside of you. It all starts with you opening your mind, opening your ears, and opening your heart to hear it and see it and feel it. Have a beautiful day.